possibly I speak. So I want to thank, in fact, Gloria for having this phenomenal event, because Gloria is a woman of great heart and great compassion. But one thing, in fact, I admire about her tremendously is her fierce intellect and her no-nonsense matter of fact. She says it as it is. And she is in fact a person of deep discernment. And I have seen more often than not a critical assessment of realities which meet and concur with what really is taking place. I want to also welcome President Rosalia from Ecuador, an esteemed friend and dear colleague, someone who is very passionate about people and has a deep sense of humanity. And that is her message. And she feels very strongly, because she's also an educator, that you can spread humanity and compassion and empathy through the power of education. In other words, empowering people to know themselves and to create a sense of self-esteem, self-worth, and self-value in each and every individual, because many times people don't appreciate who they are and the fact that they are somebody. She is about basically a philosophy indicating that everybody is somebody. I want to also, in fact, mention, in fact, Dr. Hong, a very inspirational leader. Dr. Hong, as most of you all might not know, but he has been in the trenches fighting for a culture of sustainable peace. He's the founder of the Federation of World Peace and Love, an organization that has convinced the United Nations Assembly to basically put on the table declarations that will guide us as human beings in terms of what we need to do and to establish who we are in the context of our humanity. On the 5th of April, we celebrate the International Day of Conscience. And Dr. Hong is someone who basically, as the founder of FOPAL, led the charge to have the United Nations declare the 5th of April to be International Day of Conscience, because we feel deeply. And of course, I have been an advocate in that charge, because we feel deeply that conscience-infused governance would lead to better equity, better governance structures, and better equanimity and fairness in our burgeoning democracy. But Dr. Hong didn't stay here. Because what is interesting is that on the 12th of this month, Dr. Hong, in fact, we are celebrating the International Day of Hope, where, in fact, on the 4th of March this year, he basically again encouraged the General Assembly to the Ambassador of Kiribati, and they were able to pass a declaration of the International Day of Hope. And that is so critical, because we live in a society that is in crisis. Our world is in crisis. And there is a sense of hopelessness, helplessness among the global citizens. And that day is meant to ensure that we bring back a sense of hope to the common man, to the man on the street, to the man in the corridors of power, man and woman in the corridors of power. And of course, in fact, I have Professor Nambit, who in fact is from India, and who has been in the trenches fighting, virulently fighting, to bring awareness and recognition to the crisis in mental health. Because we are a country, we are a nation, we are a world where in fact mental health is something that we do not address in the way that we ought to. And of course, I don't hope I'm not forgetting anyone else, but certainly we have ambassadors. We have, in fact, the movers and shakers in Washington, dealing with health, Mr. Moran, who is dealing with health, and the importance of engaging a people in a way that would bring us to a level, to the table of humanity. Because isn't that our imperative? To bring all of us here to the table of humanity. You know, I did write something, you know, and I guess I have taken up a lot of the time talking.
No, take your time, we're here for you.
Yes, indeed.
We're here to have words of wisdom, and later, maybe some of the people in the room will introduce themselves to us quickly, so everybody knows the menu today of who's here and who's who. But in the meantime, after Mr. President here, let's hear more about Ecuador and how we can be working more with Ecuador and what can be expected of our new administration. We have here Ed Moran, who works with Robert Kennedy. Are you here, Ed, somewhere?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you are. But anyway.
Cindy, out of
We
room.
have some very influential people here who are straight to different organizations, different heads of state. We have our friend Mr. Peter Filler, if he's here. He's very influential with important Israeli tech companies that can help all of these different countries. And Mr. President, please.
Well, I wrote something and I feel I should share it with you all. All my professional life, I have been involved in the service of the public, whether at the national or international level. Service to the public is both rewarding and fulfilling. It is these things and more because it is about making changes, creating an impact. It is about, in fact, leaving an indelible impression and inscription in the minds, the psyche of those whom you serve. I witnessed this in my homeland of Trinidad and Tobago, where I was a prosecutor, where I was a judge at the Supreme Court, where I was a Minister of Justice. And I used my prosecutorial skills to bring to justice those who committed abominable crimes against women, children, and men of my country, thereby providing hope and belief in the rule of law, which is the bedrock of progressive society. My penchant for public service led me to become an appeals counsel at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, two ad hoc tribunals established by the UN Security Council to prosecute a president, generals, camp commanders accused of committing some of the most serious crimes of concern to the international community, including war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Ladies and gentlemen, that is where I saw in classic terms man's inhumanity to man. I often tell people that having been there, I felt as if I had been to hell and back. Because I could not believe that human beings could treat people and dispose of people with such callous impunity. And that is why I'm here today. As an international civil servant, it made me a firm believer in multilateralism as a suitable mechanism to resolve matters of grave concern to the international community. This was no dissimilar to the sense of tremendous pride I felt when again I was called to work in the national public service in my country as a judge on the Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago, where I was a judge for some 10 years. The thing about it is this, is that while I was a judge, I was elected as an international criminal court judge. And 2 weeks before, in fact, I assumed my substantive purpose, my substantive position, I was called to be president. I am not a politician. In my country, I can tell you without contradiction that I'm the only president who became a judge and became president and didn't have to resign from a political party. What was important is that all the political parties agreed to my nomination to become president because they were aware of my judicial activism, my independence, and most of all, my integrity. And this brings me to the fore because I can tell you I have been with Dr. Hong and several international organizations in the trenches fighting for humanity, fighting for a sustainable culture of hope and peace. And what I have found over the years is that the UN at 80 years is a time when in fact we need to recalibrate and recommit to the principles enshrined in the UN Charter, the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and all the treaties, conventions, programs, declarations, decisions, among the several instruments. And I feel, for example, there is a call for renewal to that commitment. I feel, for example, that there is a need for the global South to engage. Let's be blunt here. I am very, very disappointed that the global North has not been able to do what is required of it in the context of creating an atmosphere and a world of peace. We have internecine warfare. We have refugees camps where women and children are dying. And we have all these wonderful structures in place, and nothing is happening. And that is why I'm here tonight, because that is why I'm in New York, that is why I'm in the trenches fighting. Because I believe we require a better and greater world.
Amen.
You know, and we need in these circumstances to incorporate in that search for principles of positivity the global South. I come from a small country, Trinidad and Tobago. And I said, why it is I cannot be the mouse that roared in the context of international principles and modalities. And that is why, for example, because I look at countries like Haiti, where, for example, there is mayhem taking place, where women are being brutalized, and nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
You know, because we are not getting that kind of preemptive and affirmative action that is required to serve the people of Haiti. We see what is going on in the Gaza, in Ukraine. We see what is taking place in the refugee camps of Syria, in Botswana, in South Sudan, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And we need to do something about it. And that is why, in fact, it's something I've been thinking about. And I felt, you know, tonight is probably the night I should say what is in my heart and what is in my soul. Because I am dispensable. And I believe, and that is what gives me my inner spiritual power, my indispensability. Because I feel sometimes in life, sometimes we feel as leaders, we are not dispensable, but we are. But finally, I want to tell you that I am aware that Secretary General Gutierrez is leaving the UN at the beginning of 2027. And I feel in the circumstances that I cannot in fact simply moan and groan. I cannot talk about what needs to be done to be recalibrated at the United Nations without attempting to do something about it. And that is why publicly for the first time, I am announcing it is my intention to put my hat in the ring to become the next Secretary General. And it is not about personal ambition. Because I assure you if there is anyone who is more competent, who is more experienced, who is better prepared to serve that particular purpose, I am prepared to in fact support that person. Because it is not about me. It is not about me, myself, and I. It is about us. You know, I look around here, Gloria, you have been magic to bring so many people of different ethnicity, of races, of religion, of political alignment. You have brought all these people here together. And there is a magic in your soul. There's a magic in your heart. There's a magic in your spirit. And God will bless you, Gloria, for what you have done and what you continue.
Thank you.
So I think in the circumstances, I have spoken enough. But because sometimes when of course I am passionate, I could probably be as President Castro, who would talk for 5 or 6 hours. You know. But
President, I think you're sharing your announcement of throwing your hat in the ring is a big honor for everyone in the room. And you're very right about one thing about me. There's no such thing of anybody who wants to fight for right that they have any enemies in their fight to right. We may not agree in the road they're taking or the way they're communicating, but if they're really people fighting for right, we have to help all of them punch everybody else in the nose and move on. And thank you so
but I
much
can,
for
one
honoring us
one
with
thing I
your
can tell you is that I have lived my life by 2 motifs, 2 themes. And that is, in fact, do the right thing because it is the right thing.
Bravo.
And the second motif I have lived by, because these are phrases I have coined, is always treat people like people. It's very simple, but it is my way of telling you that I believe everyone, regardless of race, religion, status, regardless of, in fact, geographical position, should all be embraced and should all be brought to the table of humanity. I thank you.